afternoon.
Cheers.
Very nice. I do like New Zealand Pinot Yazzo. So, drum roll. We did a Costco run yesterday, and I thought, why not show the people of YouTube's how to save a shitload of money on steak, Yazzo.
Great idea.
I think so. But before I get started, I want to talk about Chad. My good mate Chad, who lovingly wrote to me on one of our videos yesterday, Yazzo, day before yesterday.
Maybe pop the knife down.
I could, yes. Chad lovingly said, what kind of a moron, or something along those lines, talks in metric measurements? Why can't you talk in American measurements like the rest of the world?
Oh, will you give Chad
American
what he wants?
measurements like the rest of the world. I think Chadwick is talking about imperial. And let me give you a little lesson, Chad, as I look down the camera at you.
Oh, this is a lot. Let's just move on.
There are 3 countries in the world that use imperial, Chadwick. The USA, Myanmar, and Liberia. The rest of the world uses metric. And also, the rest of the world has Google, where you can research shit, mate.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
All right, let's dive into this. So as you can see, this is $29.99. Let's just call it $30 a kilo Australian. What I'll put on the screen now is that you can see that if I buy it pre-cut, which is too thick for me, to be honest, we end up not eating a whole one and it goes in the fridge and it gets chopped up for sandwiches and whatever anyway, and Yaz doesn't like it quite that thick and blah, 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 blah. It's at $39.99 or $40 a kilo. So I'm saving 25%, and sometimes actually the difference is more. I've seen it greater, 25% by just buying it whole and cutting it myself. And as you're going to see here, it isn't difficult at all, and I highly encourage you to do it. Again, we'll go through pros and cons a little bit later on, but far better way to do it. Jack's Creek Black Angus New York strip / Porterhouse steak, depending upon where in the world you come from. Because we buy it from Costco and it's an American warehouse supermarket, they call it New York strip there, so I've kind of gotten into the habit, to be honest. So I'm going to take this out of the packaging and I'm going to show you guys what's up, really. So let's just do that,
So
shall
America is, what did you say? What's it called in America?
we? New York strip?
And we call it Porterhouse.
We call it Porterhouse. Which to be honest with you, I don't love the fact that Australia calls meats different shit. I don't know whether I would call it New York strip. I think strip steak is a
But New
good way to
York's so nice.
call it. And New York is lovely. Okay, let's take this out of here. I might go off camera here, Yaz, because it's going to make a bit of a mess. So the first thing you want to do is obviously pat it dry. And once you've got it dry, we'll just inspect it. So the top, you've got the fat cap on top. And underneath, you will have a little bit of this kind of silver skinny stuff here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim out some of that. And this is pretty much going to be the only scrap that we get from this, the only stuff that we waste. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that, just like that. And look, to be honest with you, you don't have to be too particular with this, but just, get most of it, kind of thing.
Geoff, your knives are so sharp. You would have thought you were grinding away at them for hours earlier.
One thing is, yes, sharp knife is a must. All right, now you're going to see that you've got this bit here. Just come over here, Yaz. So you've got this flap bit here. Most of the trimming part I'm going to do after I cut them, because I find it's easier for a first timer anyway, and I think it's more accurate, and I actually prefer to do it that way so that I'm not accidentally cutting too much. I just cut pieces off the actual steak as I go. But what I will do is just take a chunk off there. Now, when we talk about scrap, save all of the fat, because the fat we're going to melt down and render down for roast potatoes and stuff. And also we need some fat for grind. So all of the fat chunks, keep all of that. That's just meat and fat. That's not scrap.
Did you say for grind?
Yeah, for hamburgers and for burgers and stuff. The other thing I'm going to do before I get started is I'm going to square off both ends. So you can see how that's on a bit of an angle, Yaz. I'm going to go as little as I can, and I'm going to just cut that straight, so that when I cut the steak, it's going to be nice and straight. There we go. So that again is not scrap. That is. We're going to use that, so we'll pop that aside. One of the best parts about this, and I am going to do pros and cons afterwards, is you can cut these as thick as you like. Now, the lady behind the camera here likes her steaks thin.
Don't say thin,
Thinnish.
like I'm a loser.
Thinnish.
Thinner
I don't like them as thick
than the
as...
caveman that I live with.
I don't like them as thin, as thick as Costco actually cut them, because they go to about 400 grams, and it's too much for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of sit here and measure out, and just make some little incisions as to what I actually want. So that's about a Geoff steak, and an Annabella steak, just like that, and we just measure out what we want, just like that.
I feel like the slices have gone a bit thicker, but anyway.
A bit thicker? Oh, well, that's all right.
Fine.
That's all right. All right, so we're going to cut the first one. And off. Beautiful. And what we'll do in a second, when I've finished cutting everything, is I'm going to trim that bit off. So
Really?
that's the bit that we could have just trimmed before and take any little scrap bits off. But that's...
Why wouldn't you leave that on? Because that'll just render.
I like to trim it out. I like to trim it out. That's all right. So we'll put that there. And we'll go on with the next one. I've actually made this one a little bit thin, so I'm just going to go a little bit more from my practice cut. Straight through. And there's the next one. 2. And we keep going. 3. And that's really as simple as it is. So when you get to the stage where you want some thinner ones, so I'll cut some Yasmin steaks now. Yazzo, we'll cut yours about that thick. Does that look good for you? So we'll just cut that straight down. And now we've got a Yasmin steak.
Beautiful.
Nice and thin. All right, so I'm just going to knock the rest of this out, and then I'll show you what we do next. Come in a little bit closer, Yazzo. Look at this. Look at the quality of that. Like, it's beautifully marbled. It's so easy to cut. So because I didn't trim it out, I'm going to put my big knife aside. Because I didn't trim it out to begin with, what I'm going to do now is just take a little bit of the excess fat off. So all I'm going to do is just trim that up, because I don't need all of that. I want a little bit of it, but I don't need all of it. And that goes in my fat pile that I'm going to render down. So go through, we'll do one more. Again, this is a little bit thick for me. I don't need all of this. Now, so I'm just going to trim that off, and that's a nice amount of fat on the outside of that one. Beautiful. So again, I could have done this to begin with, but I find when you're cutting like this, especially if you're new to it, sometimes you can hack too much away. And doing it like this, just taking another run through, and here we go with another one, just taking another run through is dead easy. I do recommend you leave a little bit on the outside, but again, this isn't going to waste. I'm going to melt this down. And this is going to become, you know, kind of like duck fat. We talk about duck fat potatoes a lot, which is beautiful roast potatoes. Melted down Angus beef fat is just as good. So let's just knock through that now. All right, that's all done. So of all of that whole thing, and this is, I've got to be honest, one of the better ones I've ever bought. That's what I'm throwing away. Just that. That's it. That's the only scrap I'm throwing away. That goes in the bin. Yuck. No good, silver skin, can't use it. All right, this is all fat. I'm gonna put that into a pot what we need to do is put it on a very low heat, and let that slowly melt. And then all of that lovely clean fat, you put that in a jar, you keep it in your refrigerator, it will last forever. And when you roast potatoes, trust me, I'll pop that aside. This, when we talk about 80-20 ground beef, this is basically what we've got here. I've got a few little fatty cubes, and I've got mostly off-cut meat. So, because that's such a tiny amount, and I don't actually own a meat grinder, although I am really keen to get an attachment for my KitchenAid. But what I'm going to do with this, is just start cutting it down. And I'm going to cut this down very, very fine. And this is going to become probably 2 burgers, I reckon. So let's see how we go. And we got 2 burgers out of it. It's a little bit fattier than I would like. I got the ratio a little bit wrong, but that's all right. We'll be okay. It's just going to be more delicious, right? So that's it, really. So I've got 19 steaks over here. Yes, they are cut a little bit thinner. A lot of them are quite thin. So I reckon you can expect probably around 14 or so, 13 to 14 steaks, and a whole bunch of fat over there that we're going to melt down for steaks. But what I guess the overall point is, and you can see quite clearly that this is not hard. So let's talk pros and cons. Pros and cons. Firstly, you save 25 to 30% buying it whole. The next pro, you can cut it however you like, however you want. You want to cut it thick, you want to cut it thin, easy done. You've always got steaks on hand. You know, it's awesome. The cons of it is your initial cost is higher. So you saw on the label this cost $170 odd as opposed to buying, you know, for $70. But again, in the long run, you're saving. The next con is you do need somewhere to store it. So you need an external freezer. If you're doing this with everything, which I do, we buy pork like this, pork loin like this. We buy bulk chicken. We buy bulk everything, and it goes in the freezer, portioned up, ready to go. So that is another point. This here, you need to have a vacuum sealing situation to be able to keep it nice for as long as you need it. Because I don't eat steak every day. I would eat steak once every, 2 weeks, yes, probably? I reckon. No, more than that. Once a week?
Yeah, probably.
Once every 10 days? I don't know. It's not that often anyway.
No.
It's not that often.
Do you need to vac seal?
I mean, you can use Ziploc bags.
Yeah.
I prefer to vac seal it. That's the way I like to store. What was I saying? Cons. Higher price. You need somewhere to store it. And there's a little bit of DIY involved. I mean, you've got to learn how to do this. But again, that's why I'm here.
Could do it. Yeah, there's no.
That's why I'm here to show you, because
complexity.
It is expensive and you don't want to stuff it up, but you can see how easy this is. So look, I hope you got something out of that. I wanted to show you guys how I go about doing it. Again, if you don't like your steaks cut thinly, please don't roast me in the comments, because I mean, Yaz likes them thinly. I've got 2 young kids, as you've probably seen on camera many times. They don't need it really thick either. And I like my steak. I mean, let's do an experiment, actually. Yaz, I'm going to get the scales. All right, so I like my steaks at around 300 grams. 270, 300, something like that. We'll put this on here. What am I at, Yaz?
305.
Oh! How good am I? So, yeah. I mean, I think that for a normal grown adult, I think that is a nice portion. You don't need 400, 450 gram steaks, which some of the steaks coming from Costco pre-cut was what I was getting, and it's too much for me. You don't need that much, honestly, you don't. So that's it. I hope you got something out of that, and we'll be back with a regular cook very soon.
Get your cholesterol checked, folks.
Happy Easter. See you guys soon. Cheers.